Hi, I'm Joe Baxter Webb. I've been a professional game designer for 10 years now, hobbyist developer for way longer than that. Every week I stream a bunch of games which have been sent in by you guys. This week I played two platformers that I think were exceptionally good, and I wanted to show them to you because there's a lot of kind of negative hype about this genre of games now. It's a genre that just contains more failed games than any other genre. Looks like we're doing magical theme in a kind of slice of life, possibly modern, sort of 20th century looking world, kind of Kiki's Delivery Service type vibes. Your daughter's imagination must be exceptional to convince you to knock on our door, but she is sadly delusional. Can you show him? Just gonna kamikaze. Oh, that's a cool use of VFX. For now, I'll just have to wait in the park. It should be just along this street. This is all very charming. I'm not getting my writing cringe thing that I often get from games that start off with a big chunk of narrative. All of the characters are written reasonably well. It looks like we're going to get a bit of kind of Night in the Woods type platforming, but in a real place. When we've got a setting like this that is a real place, how does that impact positively or negatively the ability for the developers to do platformer level design? And in a game like this where we've got the action happening on a specific plane, I would expect there to be a tiny bit of that fading fog even before we get to the houses that are in the background that are like directly behind the character. If you look at Hollow Knight, for example, they do a very good job of distinguishing what's something on the same layer as the player that you're going to bump into versus what's something just behind. And in Hollow Knight, there are even like things that you can walk past that are behind the character in the distance, but they're only just in the distance, like these doors and fences. And if you hit them, you can still break them, but they don't actually form a barrier. And those things have a set of visual cues that allow you to know that they are behind the knight rather than standing in the way of them on the horizontal plane. Every single individual bit of art here is absolutely gorgeous, but I'm looking at it and I'm worrying that when we get to a point where we're actually doing platforming, it's going to become visually confusing very quickly because the focus is a little bit too much on making it look like a real place. Everything here is absolutely gorgeous. How cute is that? I can be a ballerina. I can be a knight. Kitty cat. This is so sweet. All the way up there. We're tutorializing the platforming through the story. She's jumping. That motion and animation felt like it fit with the level of sort of realism that the game is going for. Because there is a challenge when you make a game like this that is set in the real world or something close to it. You're going away from kind of Mario territory and you're going into like Prince of Persia territory. Changes people's expectation of how the character's going to handle, and they need to be able to like mantle, and momentum slides down hills and stuff as well that feel very Sonic-y. I can bounce off the sheep. So we've got creatures in the environment that can be kind of interacted with, but they're not enemies per se, which is nice as well. How do you expect me to reach all the way up there? Silly kitty. Wait, is it because you want to see my magic? It's quite forgiving in terms of how that wall climb works as well, which is good because it's one of the trickier, newer mechanics. Okay, I've got some sort of magic thing. I think they might be doing something very clever with the level design, or the kind of challenge, the goal of the level here as well, where it's like instead of the goal of this platformer level being to get over the other side, it's more like a big non-linear playground that you're supposed to run around and get the magic points so that you can cast your spell for the narrative reason of getting to the cat, right? Which is really kind of interesting. It's like treating a single player platformer level as an arena, or almost like a skate park, you know, like a Tony Hawk skate park. You're just sort of exploring it and finding all the corners where you can do tricks and stuff and find the collectibles. Fraud, a boingy on the fraud. Just have a dunk in the well of creation. In the depths of her mind, a path has been retraced. Valerie can now use the bubble gun. We've got two control options. We can either press X to shoot in the direction that we're facing, or we've got a directional thing with the right stick. That's great. They're answering that question I had at the beginning. How do you do the zanier parts of platforming in a realistic world? Well, you don't. You go to the spirit realm. which, if you look at the background, is stylized to look like the inside of someone's brain, which is very cool. Things get a negative association because of being kind of inundated with bad stuff, and it's like, well, that doesn't mean that there's nothing good in that category of stuff. This is data from howtomarketagame.com. It was posted in 2022, but the problem with this type of data is I think people generally draw the wrong type of conclusions from it. So right over on this side, you'll see relatively few 4X games made, but the ones which are made make a lot of money. If we compare this to 2D platformer over here, we have a lot of games released, a relatively few of them that make a decent amount of money. Now, when you see this kind of data, the way that this is generally used is to basically tell beginners, this is where the opportunity is over here, and over here is the games that people don't want. I think really that this kind of data is more just representative of which genres are the most attempted by newbies. You go on Steam and filter by 2D platformers, you can already tell with a reasonable level of confidence that a lot of these things are going to be kind of hobby projects. Little things thrown up here for like $1. The developer of that game probably wouldn't play it if they saw it and someone else had made it. I think that's a common problem with a lot of games, is that people don't have a standard of quality for their own games that they would apply to other people's games. And then if you take the other extreme, if we take 4X, it's just because it's a genre that is dominated by professional games rather than hobby projects. The problem is people take this kind of data and they use it as an indication of what game they should or shouldn't make, when in reality there is a market for every type of game if you execute it to a higher level of quality. Okay, this is called Spring Escape. Kind of two characters stuck together, Patchy and Tulip. I got a little jump, I can't double jump, I can do a ground pound. When your feet are on fertile ground, press X to dive into it. Camera's very close in, I'm not having any issues with legibility. Part of that is because they've used these very harsh black outlines for everything that's solid, and then the background stuff doesn't use the black outlines that way. Dirt jumps. Ever wanted to reach a tall platform but your roots are too weak for that? There's a very special trick just for that. Yeah, okay. Kind of comes back to a classic thing as well of not just platformers, but a lot of games in general where they're character-driven games. The design of the world, the levels, the kind of tools that you give the player, you should be able to kind of infer them from who the character is. A little girl that's a witch. Okay, she can do some sort of magic. It's cute magic. It's bubbles because she's a little girl. It all makes sense as like a holistic package. This guy is a plant. You know, the stuff that we've been able to do all makes sense. It's good. You often get like stuff where the character design just doesn't relate to anything that you can do in the game. Am I not supposed to be going back? Oh no, yeah. Okay. Oh, there's some good use of non-linearity here of like backtracking, you know, things are in a different state and you can kind of go past them now. Really neat level design. It's a little bit confusing, but not in a bad way. See, those little sparks are going along and then shorting out that laser and then letting me get through, but only temporarily. I think one of the benefits that I had of the time that I grew up and of getting into game dev through the Warcraft level editor and the Half-Life level editor is it kind of gives you a sense of the game exists as this set of components, and the way that those are arranged into levels and specific challenges and a story for the player at the end comes after all of those components have been built. Because often when you got a level editor for something like Warcraft, you were using the level editor that the game designers at the studio were built by the tools engineers, and that kind of shows you that this game was made as this set of enemies, traps, environmental features. That big toolkit, that playset of toys was made before it was arranged into the shape that a player would understand as a game. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, because they get a game engine and they're just trying to go as quickly as possible from nothing to something that resembles a game, and that's not a good way to make a game. You know, you need to make the toolkit of the parts. One of the things that's misleading about game engines, all of the modern game engines, you still have to build the engine of your own game. You have to decide what a level is in your game. If there's combat, you have to decide what the actions are and what the damage model is and all of that kind of stuff before you start really building your game. You still have to decide the architecture of the game that you're making specifically. Obviously, it's very hard to do that when you've just started out, but it's even harder if you don't realize that that's part of your responsibility as the developer, which I think often happens because that's been hidden by the idea that there's this magical game engine that's going to do everything for you. It's not going to do all of the thinking about like how your game is actually structured in order for you to make the specific content arrangements that your game needs, you know? The amount of variations on how each mechanic is used after it gets introduced is really good here. We get the drills. Okay, now you need to, you know, run away from a drill long enough for the spark to do its thing. And then we get multiple drills. This feels like quite a good study in how to do this type of level design. It's quite different from the previous game because the previous game was doing that thing of going for a naturalistic world. This is a lot more abstract, which means it can just be much more video gamey and go, okay, here is challenge A involving drills. Here is challenge AB involving drills and sparks. Here is challenge AABB involving more drills and more sparks. It can be much more video gamey in how it's laid out. But it does have this overarching theme that makes it really, really work, which is basically the plants and the biological stuff are the good guys, and you're in this kind of nasty dystopian looking world. As cute as everything is, that kind of blue and grey and everything looking a little bit grubby, it's the same thing that Sonic did. Sonic had like a binary opposition between robots bad, technology bad, futuristic stuff bad, animals and nature good. And it just makes a really nice, clear kind of world building thing that also maps onto the visual design of these things, where like the plants are all kind of biological and move around and are animated in a specific way, and the rest of the game is kind of sharp and industrial looking. This is some great ramping up of the challenge of how all of these parts fit together. Like, we're seeing parts that we've seen multiple times now. The drills, the lasers, the having to jump out of the soil at particular points. It's not introducing new things in the environment in a really rapid way. It's combining them over and over again in a way that kind of really tests the skills that we've previously developed. So when I look at what I've got to do for this section, I'm not having to do anything wildly different, but the way it all kind of ties together and just gradually gets more complex is really well designed. And by the time you get to that bit, you've practiced that bit of the level less frequently, which means you don't have as strong a memory of it as this part, which is an interesting thing about kind of challenge design. You will notice this if you've ever learned to play music. If you mess up when you're performing a song or something and you restart every time, you know the beginning of the song really well and you don't know the middle or the end very well. And there's something about level design with that as well, which I think is why sometimes it's okay to go easy on people towards the end of a very challenging level, because by that time they're tired, they haven't played and practiced that bit as much, and it can feel really trollish to give people a really difficult level that requires a lot of concentration and then right at the end throw them a curveball that they then need to remember is there for the next time they play the level. And it can be a good or bad thing to do depending on the tone of the game that you're making, I think. So, good luck to the developers of Valerie and Spring Escape. I hope your games do well. I hope you get some wish lists off the back of this coverage. I think what you're doing is really, really good. It shows a lot of kind of care and love for the type of game you're making. And that's the type of thing that I want to encourage in this community. More of that, please. Just keep putting that level of care and attention to detail in what you're doing. And I hope it pays off because you deserve it. So thanks for sending those in. And I hope you get some wish lists off the back of this video.